Zenless is adding a new attribute to the game with a lot of interesting mechanics and synergies with already existing characters. This is so much better than Rupture on its release, which felt completely pointless, and I stand by this opinion to this day. Velina is our very first Wind character, and while she happens to be an anomaly character, Wind is far from just an anomaly attribute. Before talking about Velina herself, it is important to understand what exactly Wind is adding to the game, otherwise you won't be able to understand Velina's kit. Wind is an attribute that offers really interesting support capabilities for any agent in the game. Yes, any agent. Wind in fact can increase the damage of any character when applying the contamination state on enemies. Contamination increases the damage enemies take, but funny enough, it does not increase the anomaly damage they receive. For anomaly units, trying to apply another anomaly on top of Wind Swept won't trigger Disorder, it triggers Vortex instead, dealing anomaly damage of the same attribute as the not Wind anomaly. If you apply Shock on enemies, Vortex will deal Shock damage. If you apply Assault, Vortex will deal Assault damage. It is very similar to how a Bloom interacts with anomalies, and this also means that it benefits from effects that targets anomalies. For example, when using Jane, this means that Vortex can deal critical damage. This also has some implications as effects that relies on Disorder won't trigger with Vortex. The biggest example here is Miyabi with her charges. Since Windswept blocks any kind of disorder, Miyabi will never be able to generate charges with her additional ability against Windswept enemies. There are many other interactions, but since this is a Velina guide and not a Wind breakdown or an anomaly guide, we're going to stop here. I'll probably work on a complete and updated anomaly guide later this season. Velina's role in the team can be simplified to Windswept, as this is her main purpose so far. Apply Windswept to enemies and deal damage through Vortex and Cyclones, which relies on other anomaly units rather than Velina herself. While Vortex is a Wind mechanic, these Cyclones are exclusive to Velina's kit. There are two different types of Cyclone, Condensed Cyclone and Sweeping Cyclone. Condensed Cyclone is a small one that you barely notice. It explodes at the end, dealing a blown damage against enemies affected by Windswept. Sweeping Cyclone is bigger, lasts for a few seconds, and reduces the enemy's wind buildup, and can also be infused with another attribute to deal extra damage and reduce the buildup resistance of the infused attribute. It also explodes at the end, dealing a blown damage against Windswept enemies. Triggering Vortex on enemies creates a Condensed Cyclone and gives Velina 1 point of Wind Bite. When Velina has 2 points, the next one will consume both points to deal increased damage and become a Sweeping Cyclone. Sweeping Cyclones don't generate Wind Bite, so essentially, every 3 vortexes you get 1 Sweeping Cyclone. Velina can also generate Sweeping Cyclones by consuming her resource, Wind Bloom. Using the EX special generates 45 Wind Bloom, and Velina can accumulate up to 135, meaning a total of 3 EX specials. You have 90 or more Wind Bloom, holding down the EX special or basic attack consumes 90 points to summon a Sweeping Cyclone and trigger a Quick Assist to the previous unit. Her ultimate also triggers a Quick Assist to the previous unit and has some interactions with Windswept enemies if you activate her additional ability, which requires another anomaly or Wind character in the team. The additional ability increases the damage of Windswept, Vortex, and allows her ultimate to trigger another instance of a Bloom against Windswept enemies. It also enhances her Cyclones with increased build-up resistance reduction, more days, and build-up as well. While most of Velina's kit can be ignored since there is nothing special about it, I want to point out that Velina's days numbers are really good, especially on the second EX special, which is a follow-up to the first one. So you need a total of 90 energy to use both and get more than 1200 days multiplier on both EX special. While this feels like a lot of energy, Velina actually wants energy regeneration as her core skill converts excess initial energy regeneration into anomaly mastery and damage as well. Because of this, 90 energy is not that much, and as you can see, energy regeneration will be really important for Velina's damage and utility for the team. For the gameplay, much like other Anomaly teams, it is not only about Velina and you need to play around multiple agents and their Anomaly buildup. But essentially, you are looking to apply Windswept on enemies as quickly as possible and use your other Anomaly agents to trigger Vortex over and over. This summons Cyclones, which triggers a bloom damage, apply daze, and helps you with build-up as well. Save energy on Velina until she has 90 or more, and use her EX special twice so you can deal massive daze to enemies. This also gives enough resources points to trigger a sweeping cyclone, so remember to use it for more daze and damage. And by that point, you're probably thinking, but if Velina is basically an anomaly support, do I even need to build her? And the answer is yes, you do. All of the bloom damage is triggered on top of the existing anomaly, which means Velina's Windswept will be used for all the bloom damage of her cyclones. If you're also using a unit that triggers a bloom on the enemy, such as Premia, this also means that her blooms will deal damage based on Velina's Windswept. So maximizing Velina's stats and damage is really important. So for disc sets, the new Wuthering Salon will be the best 4-piece for her, as it is the first winged disc set. The 4-piece effect also synergizes really well with Velina, as she wants to use EX specials, and the stacks last for 40 seconds. In total, it will give 28% damage and 50 anomaly proficiency, so this is a really good option for her. For the 2-piece set, energy regeneration will be the best option for Velina, both because of quicker EX special and also to maximize her core skill buffs. So for the best numbers, use Swing Jazz or Moonlight Lullaby 2-piece on her. As for her disc stats, use anomaly proficiency on slot 4. Attack, wind damage, and penetration are all viable options for the slot 5, and it mostly depends on the substats. And for disc 6, use energy regeneration instead of anomaly mastery. More energy means more EX specials, and also anomaly mastery thanks to Velina's core skill. For substats, as usual for anomaly characters, look for anomaly proficiency, attack percentage, flat penetration, and flat attack on your subs. Velina's signature is an amazing option both for herself and for the entire team. It provides energy regeneration, which is needed for Velina's core skill, and anomaly proficiency for herself. Dealing wind damage with her EX special gives 1 stack of a buff that increases the damage of Vortex and Windswept. If that were not enough, once you get 2 stacks, it also provides anomaly proficiency for the entire team. So that's a weapon that is really great for Velina, but also helps your other teammates' damage. Something similar for anomaly characters is still not available in the game, so you can expect a huge gap between Velina's signature and alternative options. If you're not planning to get Velina's signature, any non-anomaly weapon with energy regeneration as the secondary stat is going to help you a lot with the increased build-up and more EX specials through the fight. Other anomaly weapons work fine, but without energy regeneration, Velina will lose a lot of utility. Velina's Mindscapes are insanely good. The first Mindscape adds a massive damage increase to your team, as Vortexes will ignore 20% of the enemy resistance. It also increases the daze provided by sweeping cyclones, so it can help you consistently hit 3 stuns on deadly assault. It also has synergies with blooms, as 20% of the enemy's resistance will be ignored when dealing windswept damage, and the bloom deals damage based on the anomaly on the enemy. So Premia and Arya can make a really good use of this Mindscape. Mindscape 2 allows your sweeping cyclones to apply anomaly buildup for the infused attribute. This is massive, as Vortex relies on the anomaly buildup of your other agents, so more buildup means more Vortexes, and more Vortexes means more sweeping cyclones. So you can see how strong this can be. It also improves the additional ability to increase the damage of Windswept and Vortex triggered by Velina, and adds a new source of Wind Bite as well. We don't need to talk too much about Mindscape 3 and 5, as skill levels don't help Velina with any considerable amount of damage. Mindscape 4 increases a bit of Velina's attack after using her EX special, but as usual, it is not a really great Mindscape, and it's just a stepping stone for Mindscape 6. Mindscape 6 adds more wind bite sources and increased wind buildup. It also allows Velina to increase the windswept damage when applying windswept on top of an existing one. It is a good Mindscape, but the damage increase relies on how quickly you can consistently apply windswept on enemies. In general, you'll always use another anomaly unit and a utility unit on the team. Jane is massive with Velina, since the Vortex deals anomaly damage, and because of this, it benefits from Jane's critical chance. This is very similar to a Bloom, but without the risk of removing Assault from enemies and triggering a Bloom on top of another anomaly. Of course, units that deal damage over time anomalies such as Grace, Bernice, and Arya also benefit a lot from Wind. Velina allows these units to stay on the field, building up anomalies without worrying about missing a disorder and wasting damage on enemies. These units can also deal damage using a Blooms, and since the enemy will pretty much always be under Wind Swept, he will always trigger a Bloom on enemies, so that's another thing you don't need to worry about. Speaking of Blooms, Premiere is amazing with Velina as she helps Premiere with increased build-up, and Premiere can consistently trigger a Blooms on the enemies, dealing a lot of Wind Swept damage. Miyabi can still get away with a more anomaly proficiency focused build, as the Shatter and Vortex damage can be massive. But you lose access to charges from disorders and therefore use few enhanced basics through the fight, which is the most important move for Miyabi. Basically speaking, any anomaly unit is a good option with Velina, including other options that I didn't mention here. For supports, sadly I would not recommend anything that is not Yuzuha. The attack and damage buff is really good, and as I've said multiple times, Vortex relies on other units' build-up, so using Yuzuha for the extra build-up on another attribute is extremely helpful. Overall, Wind is a really good addition to the game. For now, it mostly targets anomaly units, but it's good to know that Wind has some potential outside of anomaly teams thanks to its direct damage increase. Fires as well has access to an ultimate that deals increased damage against enemies in the contamination state. As for Velina, I'm surprised with how easy it is to play with her in the team. The long duration of Wind Swept allows me to play through the fight and mostly forget about it, and it has a really good synergy with most old agents without the need for a Mindscape for it. In fact, her Mindscapes are mostly for things that will focus on a Bloom damage, a newer mechanic in the game. Hopefully in the future, some of the units that don't perform well with Wind in the team can get a potential unlock that fixes this, but who knows when or even if this will ever happen. That's it for my Velina guide, and if the video was helpful, remember to give it a like. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments down below or join my Discord server. Thank you so much for watching this video, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.